Full highlight as the Pacers host an NBA Finals game for the first time in a quarter century, and they were ready for it. The Thunder were ready for action as well. They're up 7. What a beautiful dime from Alex Caruso to Chet Holmgren, who had 13 in the first. The thin man was putting his fingerprints on the game. So too was T.J. McConnell. Down low, the little paint finish from Siakam, and then there's the steal from McConnell. Clean look from Siakam from 3, no, but McConnell gets the rebound and a in-one motion flips it to Benedict Mathurin, and the Pacers are down just 4. McConnell again, going baseline. What a find. Aaron Nesmith on the cut, and then give me that. It's a steal, and he throws it off Cason Wallace. McConnell. There's a meme of him screaming, "I'm a dog," I believe, and he was that tonight. There's a find in the corner, and guess who? It's Mathurin. All 3 of these. McConnell had a plus 13 in the first half, tied for the most of anybody on Indiana. Halfway through the second quarter, a 5-point lead. There's that Haliburton floater. Watched him in pregame. He practices it over and over and over. It's a 7-point lead, but in the blink of an eye, the Thunder erase it. There's the MVP with the scoop, and it's a tie game. We're tied at 55. Haliburton, great ball fake. Bottoms from 3. And the Pacers shot 55%, but had just a 4-point lead. That's got to be concerning because the Thunder came out and quickly erased it. But then in a tie game, Haliburton another 3. And he's roaring, and this building is cheering him on as well. But this spurt at the end of the quarter, it's like stealing around in boxing, right? There's the great find for Holmgren. He gets the N1, and then a Jalen Williams 3. Williams was sensational with 26, and it's a 5-point lead going into the fourth quarter. But neither team could ever run away from the other. 1-point lead for the Thunder, 2-point lead for the Pacers. Mathurin another 3 of his 27. Then there's Haliburton. That step back, and I said off the fingertips, he knew it. He was already working his way back down court. 22 for him, 11 assists, 9 boards. Dad and Reggie cheering him on. 5-point game. Off the miss, there's Obi Toppin there with the big bounce. Elbows up over the rim. And the Pacer lead is 7. Thunder hanging around. If they could get a 3, make it a 1-possession game, you never know, but they could not. Off the Shai miss. Woo! The outlet to Siakam. He's got the height advantage on SGA. He puts that one down. 21-6 for him. And the Pacers get the dub. Million ways to go here. I know you love the energy of McConnell. If you want to start there, that's fine. What struck you about the manner in which the home team won this game?
Well, one, the bench came in that first half. I thought they the ones that set the tone for the Pacers and got them back into the game. You talk about T.J. McConnell, but I thought Obi Toppin was huge. I thought those guys who came in with their physicality, because the first unit didn't have it, right? They caught themselves down 8-9 points, and all of a sudden the bench came in and gave them a spark from a physicality point. But I was looking at this, and Tyrese Haliburton, right? Like, I've been asking him to be aggressive. And tonight I thought he did that. Attacking downhill, shooting his jump shots, almost, a 20-plus point triple-double. That's the Tyrese Haliburton we want to see. That's how you protect your house. When you've got a guy like SGA who's been averaging over 35 in this series, he coming into your crib, this is how you make him take his shoes off at the front door.
Well, they did, but it was a game where, as we were talking in the break, neither team ever felt like they had it, and then game like this is going to be won or lost in those last moments, and the Pacers were able to grab it. What struck you, Lugs?
I think first thing, they got some stuff accomplished tonight they could not do in Oklahoma City. Right? 2 things. One, they unlocked themselves offensively. The pace, we talk about it all the time. What does that mean? It means playing early into the clock. They did that the entire first half. So the tone was set that now their offense had flow to it. And this is the offense that we recognized all season. It's the flow we recognized through most of the playoffs. We didn't see it those first 2 games in OKC as they were adjusting to the Thunder. So that, to me, was the first thing. The second thing was they did a much better job at the point of attack on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They were much smarter about where their body positioning was. They blitzed him more. They made him give it up. He played in more traffic tonight and navigated smarter defensive schemes for the first time. It wasn't easy. He had to work tonight for everything he got. I thought he looked like he was really playing in a scrimmage in those 2 games at OKC. So those are the 2 things the Pacers were able to do tonight they could not do in games 1 and 2.
Outrageous difference off the bench. You mentioned it, Perk. 49-18, and Benedict Mathurin, who goes for 27, and just so couldn't be more impressed with a young man who has demonstrated that he can do this on a nightly basis, but had a stretch there. What do you have? 15 points over like 5 playoff games. You could get out of sour and lose your composure. He didn't do that at all, and he was big tonight. Do you think, Perk? What do you think now at 2-1 about the direction that this series goes? The Pacers have the lead.
I think we're going to be heading back to OKC on Monday with the series tied, okay? And here's why. We know one thing about OKC, they will bounce back. We know that's a prideful group. And you mentioned SGA, and I'm going to mention him and J-Dub, right? Because you want your young franchise guys to take you home on the road. But this was also another learning moment for them. Just because they call your play doesn't mean it's your shot. Both of those guys had 10 turnovers combined. I'm scratching my head because I'm watching Jalen Williams, J-Dub, off when SGA went to the bench, and he was trying to get downhill. And I'm saying to myself, these guys are open in the corner, right? And all of a sudden, you see them get these turnovers, uncharacteristic turnovers, and especially by SGA. They have to clean up that area as well. Lastly, Chet Holmgren was having it his way in that first half.
13 in the first quarter.
I got to say, man, respect to Miles Turner. You way to bounce back in the second half and guard your yard. I thought he did a great job of completely taking Chet out of the game in the second half, whether that was closing out on the perimeter, whether that was meeting him at the basket. Miles Turner was a grown man. I thought Rick Carlisle was going to have to make a decision and say, I can't play him. I got to roll with Obi Toppin. He answered the call. And when you talk about being last but not least, you got to give credit to guys like Pascal Siakam and a guy like James Johnson that's on the bench. Because those are the guys that keep him engaged and keep him ready and keep him for moments like this.
17 turnovers tonight, to the point you're making from the Thunder. That's a very, very high number for them. Credit to the Pacer defense. Credit to the defense that Turner played late. A couple of shots blocked on Holmgren. The great Mike Breen on the call courtside. I just asked Benedict to describe the intensity. I was struck by the atmosphere and just the physicality on both sides. You've called a lot of these. You've been at 21 straight here with us. What did you see tonight, Mike?
I saw a team in the Pacers that they have this belief about them. Like, it doesn't matter if they're behind, if they're ahead. There's just a special fight to this group. And I think because of what they've gone through the last couple of playoffs, and they've gone through it together, it's the perfect example of continuity on a basketball team. Same coach, same players, and they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses. It's fun to watch because they know how to play together.
I'm smiling because I'm thinking of a gentleman I worked with years ago on ESPN radio. His name's Trog Keller. Trog, if you're out there, he always was a proponent of let it bake, meaning in this microwave world we live in where we want everything immediately. Look, Boston did it last year. You got to get rid of those two guys. They can't win together. Or if you just let things be, this core group, right? They're growing, they're learning, and now we see a team that's 2 wins away. What struck you about the way they were able to win in these waning moments when the game was there potentially for the Thunder to get it?
Well, number one, by the way, I know Troget Keller as well. Big fan of his. But I think we focus so much on OKC's defense. Historically, one of the greatest defenses I've ever seen, and most people seem to agree with that. The Pacers' defense is so underrated. A couple of years ago, they were not a good defensive team. They've been working on this now for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and they just keep getting better. Not only do they have good individual defenders, but their team defense has taken huge strides.
How about the Turner defense late? There was a Holmgren possession where I want to say it was about 5, and he tried to pull from 3. They blocked it, and then they just wouldn't physically let him get the ball to the basket. I agree. I feel like the Pacers defense is largely underappreciated because we see them play offensively so well. But I'm looking at these numbers at the end. I don't know what the magic number is for Rick Carlisle. You score $116 and shoot 52% against the Thunder. You probably have to feel pretty decent about your chances, don't you?
There's no question. You mentioned Turner. Turner having a rough shooting game. 0 impact on his defensive effort. And that's what coaches always preach. And that's the way they came up with it. I just think that the joy that they're playing with as a team is so much fun to watch. Remember that 3 years ago, the Pacers won 25 games.
Right.
And this is some turnaround for them to do. And especially after a season when they started, they were even wondering, are we going to be a play-in team after a third of the season, or almost a third of the season? They're 5 games under 500.
Well, that was the fun conversation I was able to have with Mr. Haliburton the other evening about, look, I was late to the party, but as he said, so were we. Well, they're right on time to this one, 2 wins away from potentially a championship. Still significant ground to cover. Mike, I appreciate your time as always.
Thanks,
the great
Scott.
Mike Breen will be on the call Friday evening. We'll be here as well as the Pacers fans are celebrating this significant win. Here's Rick Carlisle on the Game 3 victory by his group.
Yeah, I mean, those guys were tremendous, and TJ just brought a competitive will to the game. Mathurin jumped in there and immediately was aggressive and got the ball in the basket. And, look, this is the kind of team that we are. We need everybody to be ready. It's not always going to be exactly the same guys that are stepping up with scoring and stuff like that. But, this is how we got to do it. And we got to do it as a team. And we got to make it as hard as possible on them.
Tyrese Haliburton visiting with the media after the victory. Conversation began with the defense on the MVP.
Yeah, I think with Shai, he's so good. He's so slippery, in between those gaps. It's like he splits screens that you're like, I don't know how he's doing that. And I think in game 2 specifically, if you watch a lot of my coverages, I did a poor job of being at the level. I was back, and then he could come off, and he had so much space. And now he's kind of manipulating me with in and out, or he can just split and throw through. I thought that was something we really had to clean up coming into today. And you're consistently trying to mix things up, because if you give any good player the same look over and over, it can be really tough. So, whatever it is, a show at the level, I just can't be flat. If I'm flat, there's nothing I can do with him coming downhill. So, just consistently trying to grow. And as you know, it never is like always perfect. Sometimes you got to figure it out. And, I think the big thing that makes it easier is when Drew is really blowing through, those screens. And, I think more times than not, he's getting held and having to fight through. And it's the finals. It's physical basketball. But I thought he did a great job of really fighting through. And if I can just hold him for a second, give him more time to get back square, it makes things easier. So just got to do a better job of being at the level, presenting myself as much as I can. Because if I'm back, he's a really tough cover.
Brian Windhorst alongside. Let's start with that man and his dad and the conversations about the approach that this young man brought to the building tonight.
Yeah, and look, I know that a father's always going to believe in his son, okay? But he pulled me aside before the game and he said, John Haliburton, he said, do not bet against my son. I said, I'm not betting on it all. I'm not betting on it all. He said, do not bet against my son.
Well, you told me the other night if you've been betting against him, you're a money loser.
Well, he lost again tonight. And, his trainer, Drew Hanlon, just flooded his phone and his eyes in the last couple of days with all these stats, like about look at what your record is when you score 20 points. Look at what your record is when you get a certain number of shots. Look at what your record is when you get a certain number of assists. And he spent a bunch of time watching the film. And what he was watching is how they were keeping him out of the paint. Coming into this game, he had touched the ball 208 times. He'd gotten into the paint 16.
Wow.
16. And so he was just like, I got to figure out a way to get into the paint. And repeatedly early in this game, he got his feet into the paint. And like a lot of times he was passing out, but he just somehow had to impact the game by getting into the paint. And that mindset really got them in a comfortable place because they hit all the indicators. When he scores 20, they're 8-1.
Right.
He got 20. When he scores 20, he averages 11 assists in the playoffs.
11 assists.
11 assists. That's what they do. When the Pacers score 111 points, they're 14-0 in the playoffs. 116. Check, 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 check. And it all comes back to him getting into that paint, getting the ball up.
I asked Pascal Siakam earlier about do they have any magic numbers. Sounds like those are them, and they hit them all. As for the paint, 50 points in the paint, which had been a struggle for them the first 2 games. As you and I were sitting here waiting to come on, I said I'm just struck by the number of players on this team who have the capacity of making winning plays because they're all stacked one on top of another. It's not a singular, wasn't a Haliburton shot at the end. It was just a contributions from many. they're 2 games away from winning the title. I mean, what kind of belief do you feel like there is growing within this group?
I think they've always believed. They haven't lost back-to-back games since early March. That's 3 months they haven't lost back-to-back games. This team is every bit as good as any team that's reached the finals in the last decade. It doesn't look like it because they were hiding, because they got off to a bad start. But after that, they've been awesome. And you're talking about all those guys. Let's just go down the list. Neesmith, he had 6 fouls tonight. You want to know why? Because he was playing his backside off, fighting everything. Siakam, totally engaged, backing down into the paint. Turner, he's feeling under the weather. He's sick. He had 5 blocks. Nembhard, he's in Shai's head in the first 7 seconds of the game. There's something interesting happening with those guys are both from Ontario. They grew up together. They're definitely under each other's skin. Lou Dort and Ben Mathurin are both from Montreal. It's one thing to be from Canada. These guys are from their neighborhoods, grew up together, and they're going against each other. You go down the list, McConnell, 5 steals. Everybody that touched the floor. And they are very comfortable at the end of a game. They're almost like a closer in baseball. You hand them the ball with 2-3 minutes left in a close game. They're going to finish it most of the time.
They are, but they also clearly understand what they are up against. And I was just struck, particularly with Mathurin, who's just, he is never going to break, not character, but break who he is. What's your sense of what we see on Friday? Indiana's not celebrating, and they shouldn't yet. What do you think we see Friday?
It's the biggest game in just about everybody involved with the Thunder's careers. I feel like whoever wins Game 4 gets the trophy.
Yeah, they were aggressive. They were higher on the pick and rolls. They really were, just like Coach said, more aggressive, more forceful. Yeah, we gotta. Starts with me, but we gotta apply that pressure back. Especially if you want to beat a team like that on the road, you got to be the more forceful team for sure.
First row here on the left.
Shai, you guys go in the fourth quarter up 5, then you're only able to score 18 in the quarter. You only got 3 shots up. What got you guys stuck in the mud, and what kept you from going individually in the fourth?
It's hard to say, It's hard to say because I don't see it from a bird's eye view right now. After watching film, we'll definitely have a better idea. But they were aggressive. They were heavy in the crowd. I'm not sure how many points they had, but it felt like that when they scored, we're going against a set defense, and it's always harder against a set defense. So off the top of my head, those are a few things. But I'm sure there's probably more that we can weave through once we watch film.
First row here on the right.
Joel Lorenz with Oklahoma. And Shai, it was almost too many winning plays to count on the Indiana side. It felt like in the fourth quarter, Obi's put back the steal on the inbound. What was maybe the most frustrating part of the way the fourth quarter unraveled?
I'm not too sure. We just, like you said, it felt like they won all the 50-50 plays. They executed on both ends of the ball. When you give those 2 things up, and no matter what quarter, you're probably going to lose the quarter. Especially, and then it goes back to especially on the road in a hostile environment, there are crowds behind them. So, yeah, we got to take care of those things if we want to come out of Game 4 with a dub.
You had an additional thought, Legs, on the way he was guarded.
Absolutely. And Rick Carlisle would come up with this after he saw the film from the first 2 games. But what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is talking about with the physicality, what specifically did I see differently? I thought in games 1 and 2, he was allowed to pick. All of the options were on his menu offensively because they were squared up to him so he could go either direction, which means the help defender was very confused about where to be. I thought they did a better job tonight of shading the ball to one side or the other, dictating, we're going to corral you by sending you to one hand or the other. And it wasn't always the same hand, but that tells your help defender where to position themselves. As a result, he wasn't just blowing up those blitzes out near half court the way way he did in OKC, where he's downhill with 2 guys behind him, and now he's getting to that sweet spot that he loves in the lane. He just wasn't really able to find that freedom in that space. He felt Indiana's pressure and presence the entire game. He just talked about it. I thought the adjustment was fantastic on the part of Rick Carlisle and the Pacers.
You know what I'm saying when I say you have a sentence here, okay? If Oklahoma City wins on Friday, then it's a best 2 out of 3, and they've got 2 of the 3 at home. What has to happen? What do they have to adjust to make that happen?
Yeah, I think that they've got – I didn't see their pick up the ball pressure as far up the floor this time. I thought Haliburton got loose on them in the first half of this game. They've got to get back to what they did to him in Oklahoma City.
SGA